Wrestling is scary by its very nature. We like to forget this, but talent are putting their life on the line in every match. It's a flippin' dangerous sport. When you edit out unhinged some other people can be within this industry too, well yeah, every now and then the fear is most definitely real. So who indeed did feel this in their tum-tum and wanted to run away? Well, here's 23 occasions this madness went off the rails. Number 10, hardcore feedback. And no, that's not sexy. Get it out your brain. By all accounts though, Hardcore Holly was a terrifying man. We know there are plenty of stories where he just beat people up for real, which is not cool. Although he is responsible for the best quote ever. Because when was asked how Holly would like the Office to use him, Hardcore replied that he should win the world title and then defeat everybody. That is the best response ever. Such was his reputation, though it meant younger wrestlers were always just a moment away from being chastised, which is what happened to Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins early on in their careers. They were still trying to be good soldiers, so after a tag team title win, they sought out Holly for some advice. Without missing a beat, Hardcore just shouted at them, well, the whole thing sucked. Great. As documented by Hawkins and Ryder on their podcast, this did scare the shit out of them, mostly because who knew what he was going to do? An aggressive veteran of the locker room had also just called them out. Number 9, the second fall. I know this is old news now, but we should never stop talking about it. That wouldn't be fair to Mick Foley. His Hell in a Cell match with The Undertaker is written into folklore these days, especially that first fall. It remains quite the sight to see. How on earth did he throw himself off the cell, land on a table, and not die? Guy was something else. It is the second tumble that caused all the fear, however, because the top of the cage was not meant to give way. It meant when Mick fell, he was not at all prepared, and as the Phenom has since admitted, he was legitimately worried that Foley was actually dead. I mean, the way he landed was horrible. This was also doubled as a chair fell down and whacked Mankind right in the skull. And look, the real-life Mark Calloway must have seen it all by 1998, and yet this still got to him. That's how distressing it was and why we must never forget the risk involved here, next level. Number 8, the wobbly legs. A scaffold match is ridiculous. I mean, most wrestling stipulations are, but why are we fighting on a scaffold? Who built it to begin with? This is arguably one of the most famous of these from WCW Starrcade 1986, where the Midnight Express were facing the Road Warriors. Of course, Hawk and Animal got rid of their opponents eventually so they could go after evil manager Jim Cornette, to the point Jimbo legged it. He didn't need any of this. It meant he was soon hanging from the flipping platform, with the plan being he would fall into the arms by the awaiting Ray Traylor, or the future Big Boss Man. No, because while he was waiting below, I suppose Traylor was out of position, even though you can quite hear Jim shouting, Ray! It meant when Cornette fell, he landed right on his legs and tore his knees apart. It really is horrible. Jim also had a fear of heights, so he must have been terrified here. I can only imagine that going forward, it made this terror 10 times worse. Number 7, another fear of heights. I do understand all of this, by the way. I have a fear of heights too. Put me at the top of the Eiffel Tower, and man, I'm gonna freak out. Enzo Amore was somebody else who felt this way, and I would guess when WWE found this out, they thought it would be hilarious to send him upwards in a shark cage. The whole thing was a mess anyway, because it was after Big Cass had gone heel, and the Big Show was being the Big Show. Plus, Enzo was the good guy. The cage was meant for bad guys, to stop them interfering in matches. I think at this stage, WWE was just done with Amore, because even after he got out, Cass just booted him in the head. So again, this feels like we were doing something. Let us see how the individual in question reacts. Enzo was scored though, because of course he was. You don't get to choose when you turn this fear on or off, and even if you could, who the hell would choose to have it on? Number 6, the cucumber story. The Undertaker has spoken about this since starting his podcast run. Does feel quite overblown, but still, the fact it's even remotely true, what a world. I'm not sure whether it started here or not, but during a shoot interview between Paul Bearer and Jim Cornette, Bearer does actually reveal that the dead man cannot stand cucumbers. That's right, the vegetable. Paul makes it clear that Taker doesn't want to be in 100 feet of the damn things, and even explains how people would rip the guy by leaving cucumbers on his table at the Waffle House. Apparently one time he even vomited. Bearer then goes into all these crazy stories about how individuals would leave cucumbers all over his attire. And what is happening? How do we get here? Calling it scared may be a bit much then, but the Phenom despised them so much, it did become super emotional, to the point Paul clarified is the one weapon you can use against the man. This is just a strange world that we're living in, but if The Undertaker is ever about to beat you, just show him a cucumber. I don't think anybody has ever said that sentence. Number 5, taxing. When the Ultimate Warrior abruptly left the WWF in 1991, Jake Roberts had nothing to do. This was his feud. Because he was all-time, he went back to the Macho Man Randy Savage to make magic, and this is when he had his King Cobra bite Randy, who reacted like he was going to die. This was mostly because he was scared of the damn snake, because who wouldn't be? It was a real snake. So while Randy definitely deserves a shout out here, it was actually somebody else proving how horrific this was. IRS. He was boys with Roberts at the time, and when he saw these attacks, man, he was losing his mind. If not the real-life Mike Rotunda was the best actor, because it looked like the eyes in his head were about to pop out onto the floor. Even when he would cut a promo, he sounded scared, and the whole thing was a huge asset. Everyone thought Jake must be totally crazy. Again, too, I want to make this clear, it was a real snake. This seems insane to me now, and we actually let it bite someone. Let's not go back to this. Number 4, Hawk makes a mistake. This is the best one on the list. We returned to 1998 at the No Way Out pay-per-view as Vader was cutting a promo with Sonny. That doesn't take you back to that era, nothing will. The Mastodon is threatening Kane though, and for some reason Sonny sort of no-sells all of this when the door opens up behind them. It was not part of the plan, because clearly nobody had told the LOD's Hawk that an interview was happening, because he walks right into the shot and pulls the best face ever. His eyes grow to the size of pool balls. He then walks out of the frame, which makes it even more entertaining, and you can just imagine that feeling in his stomach. He did not mean to do that. So this one is just fun, to be honest, and I would take more of these shenanigans happen. They're genuinely quite funny. Number 3, the best worst chair shot ever. We go back to the Big Boss Man for this one. Sky was a hero when it came to missing cues, because it gave us situations like this. You may remember the WWF Survivor Series 1998 Deadly Game tournament, when the corporation decided to screw Stone Cold Steve Austin over as best they could. This meant as he faced off against Mankind, special guest referee Shane McMahon revealed his true feelings as he flipped the rattlesnake off mid-pin. This was a bad idea. The plan from there was for the Big Boss Man to appear and smack a distracted Austin with his nightstick right in the head. The small problem being that the Boss Man never showed. Steve and even Bruce Pritchard have talked about this on their respective podcasts, and when everybody realized this wasn't going to happen, an audible was called. Gerald Briscoe, who was already at ringside, could just hit Austin with a chair. Now, I would assume that Jerry was either out of practice or worried about injuring the WWF's hottest star, which is why he took this weapon and basically just tapped him on the head. I mean, it is so weak, it's hilarious. Briscoe instantly knew he messed up and has spoken about how worried he was waiting for Steve to come backstage. As a man who took things very seriously, this was not going to go down well. I guess it all did get sorted out, but yeah. In terms of Austin losing a match, this was not the way. Number 2, the most horrendous Bob Holly story. We have talked about Bob already in this list, and really, on occasion, he just went way too far. As such, he often scared the shit out of other wrestlers, but I suppose this one is worse. Holly zoned in on tough enough competitor Matt Cappotelli and just ruined the guy during a training match. I mean, come on. Halfway through a documentary about this too, Matt, Nidia, and John Morrison even spoke about their fear when Bob entered a room. So when they saw this, tell you, just not good. Cappotelli's face is just battered and bruised following this as well, and the line at the time was how this was par for the course. But look at it this way, if you did do it today, you would be fired. I think that says a lot. The best way to look at it would be hearing word that some trainee had been wrecked during an NXT Performance Center session. That's never going to happen in 2024, and nor should it. There are other ways to figure out if somebody has the moxie to make it in this business. So I would advise that you never even go and check this out. It's bottom of the barrel stuff. Number 1, Flair saves the day. Coming right from the Andre the Giant documentary from 2018, I suppose we do have to take this with a pinch of salt. Wrestlers love to exaggerate. One story that did make its way in was from Ric Flair, although dictated to us thanks to director Jason Heher. I suppose he believed it enough to get it out there. Starting as all Flair stories do, he and a bunch of wrestlers were getting drunk on the beach. As Blackjack Mulligan was taking shots at Andre, however, eventually the Giant decided screw this when he grabbed him, as well as somebody else he didn't like at the time, dragged them to the ocean and started to drown them. That's right, it was Rick who had to try and stop this, and I suppose he must have gotten through. From nowhere, Andre listened to reason and calmly went and sat back down again. That's way more terrifying. The guy was in control. The Nature Boy also admitted this sent him loopy, mostly as the Giant was just a mountain of a man who could do this no problem. It's also absolutely a totally crazy wazy story. I mean, what are we doing? And if we need a PSA in this video, please friends, do not drown people.